Jacob Street. That's how it looked in 97 when we were there.
Visual artist Barbara Ariss is always working away in her Georgetown home, but at this time of year, she often recalls her childhood growing up in Chaddock, a small Jewish community in German-occupied Czechoslovakia.
My father said nobody believed and knew what was going on. And then when it came out and when Jewish neighbors disappeared, you thought they left to Switzerland or to America. It was the rumors. When it was too late, then you ended up in trouble.
While Barbara's father was working abroad, German soldiers broke into her home. She, along with her older sister and mother, were sent to a concentration camp.
My mother and my sister were crying because my mom wanted rather to kill herself and my sister, and I remember that, and I was shaking, and then we put things in the baby buggy and we marked off.
During her time in the camp, she was exposed to harsh conditions and violent atrocities, putting her in a constant state of fear.
You're scared, you're helpless, so that becomes your normal. There were no bathrooms, there were ditches, and you had to walk to the place, and there were these big, ugly, long worms on the way. And I remember the kid blowing up in front of me because he went back and forth on it, and it was a mine.
9 months later, the Russian military freed the camp prisoners. With her sister and mother, Barbara escaped and tried to reconnect with surviving family members.
Everybody was somewhere else. My father was already with the Americans to the west, but we didn't know. My uncle ended up in Siberia. He died there, which we find out in 1963, and my aunt was raped by soldiers, and so many bad things happened to her. She committed suicide.
When World War II ended, Barbara's family was reunited, but for Barbara, the nightmare wasn't over.
The after effect, wake up screaming at night. When an airplane flew, later when the war was over and an airplane flew, I would hide.
Barbara and her family moved to Germany under the guise of Catholics. The war ended, but the tensions between cultures were still alive.
You were a foreigner, even so, and they spoke a different slang too. But the locals spoke differently, and the locals did not like people coming from the East.
Barbara's parents always hid their Jewish culture in fear of persecution. They dyed their hair and told everyone they were German. Barbara herself wasn't even aware she was Jewish until she was a teenager.
I knew something was different about me, and then when they thought I was ready to talk about it, I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to be a normal person. You forget it. You do want to be like the other kids, and you just put everything out of your head. You don't want to be different. You don't want to show what you went through.
But it was only until after the war, Barbara began crafting her skills as an artist.
And then after the war, I had no toys or anything. So my father tried to sell fertilizer. And he had these advertisements. There was always a white page. And I could draw and print stories. That's what I made my fantasy world. And my fantasy world were little mushrooms, and there were little people living underneath, and they had a beautiful life, and like little dwarfs, but I was in between them, and so made my fantasy world. That was my big savior.
Barbara has since made herself into one of the region's top artists. Her work has been displayed in art exhibitions across the globe. She uses her talent as a way to get through the dark times in her life and give herself purpose.
I survived, and there must be a good reason why I'm still here. There is positive and negative in life, but you have to focus on the positive and have hope. That's the only thing that can pull us out, hope.
For Halton News, I'm Hayden Narine.